And thank you each for being here and for the work that you do. The Social Security Department shows 6.5 million active accounts to Americans that are at least 112 years old or older. Have you run into any of this in your own accounting for the problems that we have on? I mean, we talk a lot about the disability. We know the trouble that it is in. But 6.5 million active accounts of Americans that are 112 years old or older.
Yes. Go ahead, Barb.
We have done work on the Social Security records. We've been very interested in their death records and why you would have people who were 112 and older who were not in the death records is troubling. And I think the Social Security's response to this has been the people that were identified, in particular by their Inspector General most recently, are not active beneficiaries. So we don't really need to verify that because it's not part of our program. But the death records are a very important aspect of program integrity across the federal government. They're shared with other agencies to make sure that we're not sending checks to dead people. And it would be very important to keep that information up to date. So yeah, we're very concerned about that.
Do you think with 6.5 million of them that are still listed as active accounts that maybe some of those might be abused?
Absolutely, and some of them are.
With the things that have been pointed out with TRICARE and Veterans Administration, as a military retiree, I'm on TRICARE for life, which really means TRICARE to 65, and then it rolls over to something else. We went through a gyration in the military, even when I was on active duty, when they revamped to go to TRICARE, and we see a reduction in base hospital and healthcare facilities that could not accommodate, and then they would move you to the local community and you would receive your care there, which is much what I do now. Even as a member of Congress, I have those exemptions under a different title of law. I pay a copay. I go out, and as a veteran of several wars, I have my medical desires met. Do you feel that a construct like that would be adequate to even replace the VA?
We haven't done work specifically on that question, but we do know that for many years before the recent concerns about waiting times at the VA, there were limitations in their ability to take care of all of the veterans. So they've always had a capacity to send veterans out on the market for what they then called fee-basis care. That was greatly expanded through the CHOICE program. We have very significant concerns, not only in the civilian sector, but actually for all of us about coordination of care in those situations. It's one thing to have the most cost-effective care available. That's critically important, but the quality of that care and the coordination to ensure that the care is actually value-based is where we are really trying to drive care for everybody in both.
I would suggest that the lack of overhead, the lack of payment of salaries, the lack of all of the other things, just paying for the care outright might be a way to solve a lot of the VA issues that we're dealing with. And we have other medical systems that are proving that to be at a rate lower than Medicare, which was the basis of some of your reports. The Department of Defense, it spent $14.4 million in storage of items that have not been requested in over 5 years. For example, a $391 power mast that hasn't been asked for and has cost $8,000 to store in over 5 years. And this while we had active theaters of war in both Iraq and Afghanistan. How do we address the things that, I understand giant gears and things that we might need in some national global emergency, but that's not what we're talking about here. What is being done to address this massive storage problem of things that aren't even asked for in over 5 years?
Sure. This is actually is another GIO high-risk area, supply chain management, of which inventory is one of 3 elements of it. There's actually a good news story here in that DOD has paid considerable attention to making sure that they only have the inventory on hand that they need. They set aggressive inventory reduction goals over the past years and largely have achieved them. There's only one remaining area that we're really focused on, is that they maintain the progress that they've made to date, and that they put in a framework to ensure that this continues as leadership changes within the military, that they keep this emphasis and focus. So we think this is actually a good news story, but that DOD needs to continue the progress that it's made in this area.
Thank you, and thank you for your answers. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank